Check, 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 check. What's up, Strath? What's up, Till? Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Strath, glad you could make it, but you don't sound too good.
To be honest, more than 1 hour is impossible because I am tired as hell and had some quite exhausting days, not work-wise, just been out in the snow with my son and such things. And so I'm really tired now.
Yeah, that weekend time with the family is essential. Yeah, listen, hang in as long as you can, but if you got to go, that's fine. I appreciate the effort.
Yeah.
Guys in the chat, just let me know if you can hear us all. I'm pretty sure you can, but just let me know for sure, please. Longburn Army, thanks for jumping in. So we're just waiting for Zaradar and Ed, who are generally right on time. I told everybody we weren't going to start until like 4 o'clock anyway. So as soon as they pop in, we'll get going. And it seems like we're all going to pretty much just do audio and keep our cameras off, which is probably good because I've never actually had this many people on a Zoom chat before, and I don't really know how my computer would handle it. So we should be okay. All my mods in the chat, I'm very happy to see you guys all pop in. I appreciate it. Fire King, Pudgy, Ryan. I think Richard might even pop in. I really have no idea how many people are actually going to tune in, but I appreciate that you guys are here, and I'm looking for you to make sure that you keep everything in order. Hey, Lulian, what's up? I see you there. Because I really want to pay attention to what these guys are saying. So sometimes it gets a little difficult to bounce back and forth between the conversation and reading the chat. So again, I'm really happy you guys are here. I appreciate you all. And we should get started hopefully in a couple minutes.
Hi, what's up, guys?
Tobias, glad you're here. Welcome. I don't know if everybody else saw it, but we got a message in the Discord that Ed is running a little late. And so I'm sure he'll pop in whenever he's ready to pop in. I would say that we should probably just go ahead and get started without him. What do you guys think?
Yeah, that sounds fine. I'm feeling a bit under the weather today, so I'll just try to pitch in while I'm lying on the couch.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, Strath is a little tired. Having everybody here, I have no idea how this, will go. But yeah, hopefully, we keep it a little concise, and it's the weekend. I don't want to keep you guys forever. So Lunkburn Army. I don't know if can you hear me? I don't know if you're ready to unmute. Yeah, there you are.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
What's going on, brother? Yes, absolutely. Listen, I believe that I have it so that any of you guys can share a screen. If there's anything that you want to pop up, I was going to pop some things up. But if you have any trouble doing that, or if you want to pop something up, just let me know. It should be all set for you to do.
Sounds good.
All right. So I was thinking, let me try to do this. Everybody should be able to see my screen. I was thinking we'd start right here. First off, welcome everybody. Thank you very much for doing this. Hopefully a lot of people pop up in the chat from the community, and I'm looking forward to probably taking more community questions than I normally do for this roundtable event. But yeah, I wanted to start here because this I don't know if everybody has Medium, but Lunkburn Army has been really good about putting up these short little Medium articles, which are updates as far as what the L1 task force is doing, what they've accomplished, what's going on. Sorry. So this one came up yesterday, and it's a pretty quick one. The following summary provides a status update for activities for the L1 task force, Q1 roadmap and release milestones. And I'm going to expand this right here. You can see this, LBA?
Yep, for sure.
All right. So if you don't mind, why don't you go ahead and just tell everybody what it is that we're actually looking at here.
Yeah, so basically this is a project schedule like for our roadmap for Q1. And what I've done is taken all of the sprints and illustrated where they're happening. So the development team is working in 2-week sprints. We've finished our first sprint. So you can see first we developed the entire backlog, which is kind of like the parking lot, so to speak, for the entire quarter of all the different things that were approved in the proposal. And then it's kind of like we need to break that down further. So we did that. And then this breaks down all the sprints all the way until the end of the quarter. And then we have our key milestones that are going to be happening. So we have the V105 hotfix release, which as you probably know, it's out in up for vote right now. It's I think it's going to pass in a couple days, it looks like.
Yep.
And then all of the details are there. We're providing advance notice to all the validators that in mid February that's going to be happening, so that they can update all the validators. Then V106, which is the Binance whitelist, that one also needs a governance vote, so that'll be coming up shortly. And then we've got a couple of other pieces we put into that release. So that'll be mid-February. And then the big one at the end of the quarter is version 2.04, and that really contains everything else. We've got the Cosmos SDK development work that's going to be happening mostly for the month of February, and then we've got testing in March, and the same for Tendermint. And then you can also see the IBC whitelist and the GitHub repo and stuff like that, some of the proposals that we've got to do there. So
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Yeah, you guys have been really good at getting all of this information out, so that the whole community can kind of see exactly what's going on step by step. Again, these articles are being posted on Medium. If anybody doesn't have Medium, I think Medium is free. All you have to do is kind of set up an account. And well, there is a free version, and I think they only let you read maybe one thing a day or something like that. But for like a few bucks, you can join and you can read as much as you want. So Lunkburn Army has his account, and you can follow him, and this will keep you up to date on everything that's going on as it happens. Tobias Zaradar also has an account. Ed has an account, and a lot of these guys post here, and it's a really, really good way to keep up on what's happening. Also, though, we have access to the actual GitHub stuff, which tends to get a little more technical. But it's again just another way that the team is kind of going out of their way to make sure that the community is up on every single thing that's happening as it's happening. So yeah, so that was the that update. I want to ask you about, because it's something that's come up in the community, so we may as well just go in and start talking about some of this stuff. Yeah, the V105 is up for vote right now, and it looks like, you know, that should pass easily. This Binance whitelist thing, you want to talk to me? You know, everybody's well aware of the objections that some people have had about it. Do you want to chat about that a little bit? Anybody? Oh, and Ed, I see that Ed popped in. Thanks for popping in, Ed. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Are you asking me about this? Is that all right? Well, I guess I'll jump in. Can you hear me, by the way?
Yeah. Yep, I can hear you.
Oh, sorry, you can't hear me now. Can you hear me? Yep. All right. So when we talked to Binance a couple of weeks back, there were two things that Binance was asking to continue their burning. One was to essentially turn off the seigniorage reminting, which was already done. I think in our discussions, one of the options we threw out there was a separate burn wallet, which was another option. But you know, basically anything along those lines of whatever they burn, they want to make sure that it kind of stays burned, whether it's a separate burn wallet or the seigniorage. And then the second thing was to whitelist the internal movements of the movements between their wallets. And I did confirm with them that they're not, you know, it's fine if it's like deposits and withdrawals are still taxed. It's just the internal movement for their security purposes. And so, I mean, obviously it's a controversial, you know, proposal. It's a controversial ask. Yeah, I don't speak for the whole L1 team here, but at least in my perspective, it's really important that we figure out sorry, it's my son. We figure out all the details of what's involved, which you know, everyone here did a very diligent investigation of what's entailed with this possible whitelist. It was important to get sort of all the facets understood and coded, so that we can present it to the community for governance vote, right? So, I mean, if you look at what TFL did in the past, I think there was a proposal a short while back to raise the minimum commission of all validators 5%. And if you look at what they did, they coded it, right? And it went to governance vote, and then it got rejected. And so that's kind of what I believe that we're doing in a similar vein. We're going to code it. We're going to make sure it works, and then we'll present it for governance vote. If it passes, it passes. If it doesn't, then then it doesn't. So.
All right, I got you. Strath is my fellow community COC member, and he's the one who would actually, like, this is kind of his area. This, certain things that I guess we are all kind of paying attention to, but I'm curious, Strath, how you feel about what thoughts you have on this whitelisting for Binance.
I think it's a very, very difficult topic. On the one hand, for the community, it's quite important to have Binance support the Burn initiative. On the other hand, personally, I am not a friend of whitelisting or extra handling of some entities involved in burn tax or any other things that are on the blockchain. So it's something that if I would decide personally, I would probably not do a whitelisting at all, because I think it might lead to kind of precedent, for example, there's an Agora for something completely different already to exclude certain contract things from the tax, and maybe being able to raise the tax for normal coin movement in the future then. And I think it's not only the Binance support to consider, but also what could follow it by implementing a whitelist into the system. But of course, I understand why it's very controversial. On the one hand, the burn that Binance contributes, because it's quite the main burning that is happening currently. And on the other hand, I think it's like they get some prior position handling on chain for their internal movements, of course, not for withdrawal and deposit. And the question is, if some other CX came and said, okay, we will burn 50% of our revenue from long trades, if they would get on the whitelist too, or if they wouldn't. And that's all questions that might arise in the future.
I guess I can take the opposite view on it then. In any political system, regardless of it's democratic or not, you have a system of levers that keep society running. And that means that you will always have different, from a tax perspective, taxes applied, like foundations and organizations are typically exempt from taxes. We don't, tax the UN for a reason. The government is not exempt for taxes. Citizens are not exempt for taxes unless they have certain special situations that make it so. Maybe they work abroad. Let's say they work on oil rigs, for instance, most of the year. Then it might not be fair to tax them. So I think in general, the system already has a blacklist that allows us to blacklist people from sending tokens to others. So I think a whitelist is, only a natural evolution, because we are at the end of the day a group of investors investing in a shared enterprise to create a value network that we can do business on in a decentralized fashion. It stands to reason as investors that we would want to have a function that allows us to enable our business partners and the companies that we decide to incubate to be able to be exempt from certain taxes, simply to allow them to grow and profit in our network. So I don't see this inherently as a bad thing. I see it as a very normal thing that exists in any society on the planet, And thus, Conway's law dictates that we will eventually adopt these same types of measures on chain.
Yeah, I just think that there's quite a different situation, especially with all whitelisting having to go through governance. And the situation that we now have with the current implementation is that it's, I think you named it a tax-free trade zone, because it's the internal movement of Binance. So that means if Binance sends coins from one of their wallets to another, they are not taxed, or they would not be taxed. And as soon as an external non-whitelisted wallet is involved, no matter what way it is taxed. So if that specific whitelist would be extended to further CX,
but I think we have to remember one thing here, my friend. We're only talking about the burn tax. There's many different types of taxes. So I just think it's important that we make it clear for the argument and the audience that this is not about general purpose taxation. This is about a specific rule that we adopted, and it's no different from Abu Dhabi and Dubai, who have rules about having to do business through foreign entities. This is what for many local entities, or agents as they're called. This was what for many years kept foreign business out. That's why they built free trade zones, to work around their own regulatory system, to enable companies to come in and do business in a fashion that was inducive of what their investors wanted. So my point here is that nobody's going to choose to do business on our network if they're forced to pay a tax, if they can do the same business on a similar network where they're not paying that tax. And that is a problem for us as investors in order to be able to create value. And this is why I think that, the conversation should be more around how do we manage this whitelist in a way that is fair and not biased, rather than whether or not we need it, because I think eventually we're going to get there.
Yeah, but I think in this case, so you say the tax is preventing business. So why not removing the tax completely?
Could choose to do that. That's another governance decision. But again, right now we have a law that says that we're supposed to burn tax. We don't have a law that says we should abolish the burn tax, because by and large, as investors, we want to keep the supply deflationary. But there will be incidents, like take DEXs, for instance. DEXs are built to do many on-chain transactions. These types of systems become a lot less viable when you're paying a burn tax on each transaction, right? So in a way, we are making these business cases very hard to realize through this specific law. Now, politicians and people know that the laws are not perfect. So when a law is created that creates a problem, then sometimes you make an amendment. And for me, this is like an amendment to a law that we passed. If we decide to abolish the burn tax, then there's no reason to do this, right? But that's another talk entirely. So for me right now, the state of the system is that we have a law that we've elected or passed that states we have to do a burn tax, but that creates problems for certain actors that, from a investor perspective, are important if we want to keep our network growing.
Well, and I think,
but let's say you brought up the example of a DX. So I am involved in level 2 with NFT market. So they, depending on the growth, they are bringing quite a lot movements to the chain just because of the secondary markets and such things. So so we start, let's say, with Binance. We might add another CEX because they want to do business and might bring the same offer to the table, like burning their own revenue. And then we might continue with the DX because it's vital for their system. And then we might extend it, for example, to NFT marketplaces because their transactions get more expensive. And especially from what I hear, the arguments now are, okay, if those entities are exempted from tax, we can raise the tax again.
But I understand that, and I respect the insight you have into NFTs, but I think you're leaving out one very important thing. NFTs are not traded every second. They are traded once in a while on auction. The amount of transactions you need in an NFT DApp is sufficiently less, or a lot less than what you need in a DEX, because DEX is by and large just people throwing money back and forth and trading into new opportunities. So the, you know, it's an like 100 order of magnitude higher than what you do in an NFT, and this is the problem. The use cases where you need to do a lot of on-chain transactions become highly unsustainable when you have a burn tax, unless you can offload that burn tax on your users. But that basically means that from the perspective of a DEX, their minimum fee will always be our burn tax plus whatever spread they need to make to earn a profit. And in a world where everybody's competing towards no fees, then that becomes very unsustainable. So my point here is that I don't necessarily disagree with you that we should try to keep things, you know, democratic and so on, but there will be situations where we need to assess our current rule system and make votes on exemptions if we want to attract certain types of businesses. I think that's just the nature of this game, because there's so many other competitors that would willingly offer the same feature set to them without the burn tax, right?
I think.
Well, I think, yeah, I was just going to say that I think, you know, it's a fascinating conversation for sure. Similar to any other decision point, you know, you want to take all of the benefits and potential risks and really analyze like which choices are good ones to make. Ultimately, whatever happens has to go through governance. So right now, the only thing that is being discussed at the governance level is Binance in particular. And that is something that has to be voted on. And I mean, the L1 team found the way that we can implement this so that Binance, you know, so Binance can be whitelisted. For other items, that would also have to go through governance, right? So this is all kind of speculation and pros and cons right now of something that will come down the road, that the community at large will have to decide upon which way they'd like to go. But I think the thing to remember with Binance is they're a bit of a unique business partner with the blockchain in the sense that they are burning millions of dollars of their own money right now, making Luna Classic deflationary. And I think that that's a boost for the community and a morale boost for Luna Classic in general. So that's something I think everybody has to consider, whether or not that is going to happen. But that's sort of the vote that's going to be at hand, is just specifically for Binance, not anything to do with other projects or other items to be whitelisted. We're not there yet. So that's just something important in this conversation. It's a great conversation to have, and you can see there's varying opinions. There's going to be for, there's going to be against, but I think that that's something, again, that has to go through governance and be decided that way.
Well, the chat is getting a view into what these meetings usually look like and sound like, because it's not just the big echo chamber. It's not just, you know, one way of doing things. That, you know, there's a little tit for tat. There's a little back and forth, and it seems like this particular issue, when it does come up for a vote, is not maybe going to, you know, be the easiest one. You know, we've seen a couple that have come up so far that have, you know, flown through 90-something%. This one might be a little tougher. So the thing is, I always recommend for everyone to listen to all sides of this, hear the arguments, both, you know, for and against, And do as much research as you can so that when you do have to vote on it, you're really making an educated vote, and not necessarily just listening to what your favorite guy has to say. Do we know when this will actually be submitted for vote?
I mean, the code is done, so I guess the proposal will be put up at some point, and then we'll prepare to include it in the 106 release, which is the one that comes after 105. So I guess it could be next week, depending on its schedule.
Yeah, I mean, I think looking forward, we have the 105 that has passed the quorum. It looks like it will pass in general. So we're going to take a little bit of time there to coordinate that upgrade, make sure everyone's on the same page. And then we have a hype block in the 105 to trigger around February 14th. And so probably we'll be sorting this out in the first week of February.
Yeah, perfect. And you know, DJ Trev, what you were just saying about the everybody sort of having a varying opinion, that's actually a really healthy thing, and that's what our team really encourages at the table. I've heard Tobias say it many times that he wants people to have other opinions and for us to you know, bring up ideas that may not be in full agreement with one another. And that's kind of the role of the oversight committee and things like that, to bring up the perspective of the community. And yeah, it works really well that way. And then I help facilitate those pieces and help people think about, you know, what are the implications of one decision versus another. And that's kind of what my role in that whole piece is.
Yeah, I would also like to point out, other than what people just said, this is very true, that there's an inherent danger in you know, included in enabling governance parameters, and that danger is that somebody could, you know, buy 2/3 of the token and just decide to put themselves on the whitelist. Let's say we decided to re-implement the swap system, which I'm a very big fan of, with a, you know, hard-coded hard cap, but some people want to make that configurable. Let's say we made that configurable, then I buy 2/3 of the tokens. I put myself on the whitelist. I start, you know, doing a lot of wash trading. Then when somebody goes in the opposite direction, I just change the swap system so I can just instantly print another 5 trillion tokens for myself. Then I change it. You see, this is the danger of governance parameters. And people don't really understand this, right? They think it's good that they can change everything, but it's not always good. And there's also complexity involved in it. Let's say we want to have to do many different changes, right? Then all of a sudden, what if only 2 of the 3 changes passes? Then the system goes into an inconsistent state that we never really depended on, or, you know, figured it would get into. So this is why, by and large, a lot of complex technical systems that have a lot of, you know, consumer success have that, because they consist largely of a single button that you can press and nothing can go wrong, right? So this is something people also have to remember. I understand the need for feeling that you are in control and you can manage things, but there's a flip side to that control. Or, as you know, Spider-Man's uncle said, with great power comes great responsibility.
Yep, absolutely. Listen, I promised that I would get to the chat as much as I possibly can and ask some of the questions, and the questions aren't always friendly, but we're going to ask them anyway. Stephen K, and any of you guys on the panel here can speak to this. Stephen K says, why are you wasting time on governance instead of doing the L1 work you were contracted for?
Well, I can speak to that. I mean, we are doing the L1 contract work that we were contracted for, and one of the key pieces that need to happen is we need to pass governance for these items in order for them to take effect, because some of them are state-breaking changes, others are parameters. These are big pieces that affect the community at large, and the community needs to be able to vote on it, right? Like everything from the Cosmos SDK upgrade to Tendermint to smart contracts, they impact validators, they impact everybody, you know, smart contract holders. So the community needs to vote on it. Now, one thing I will say that's kind of a personal wish of mine, you know, is when we've received a mandate like this, I would kind of, it would be nice now, you know, if, because right now we have to post something on Agora for 7 days, and then we have to wait another 7 days while it's voting, and then you have like a 14-day window. So what I've done is what we've done is we've tried to schedule things so they're staggered, so that while we're waiting for that whole 14-day window to pass, we're getting other work done. It would be something that would be an interesting conversation to have if there was a way to optimize that a little bit in terms of, you know, do we need a full 7 days on Agora because the community already voted yes to do these things? Is it enough to do it for 5 days, as an example? So that's the type of thing that would be good to discuss, but for sure they do need to go up for a governance vote.
I think Zardoz spoke to the same thing, right? Trying to shorten the system up a little bit.
The whole point with these types of protocols is that the devs can make all the code they want in the world, but none of it passes without governance. And the problem is that, you know, we don't have a ton of business analysts sitting around outside, you know, doing their own proposals. A lot of the proposals that get put up on Agora are only half baked, in the sense that they're not really thought through, or they're not completed, or they might not even be viable or even healthy for the network as a whole. So the problem here is probably that, you know, in a perfect world, the community would write proposals and we would just write the code. But as it stands right now, often for us to, you know, implement the changes that we think are the right changes for the network, we also have to go through managing the governance process.
Right. Okay. I want to thank Stephen for actually moving me right into the next section here. Pretty good segue. So going on with this article, Q1 release include Classic V 105 hotfix, the 105 Binance whitelist, Cosmos SDK upgrade, Tendermint upgrade, Classic release 204. And then we get to where it says the current status is that all items are currently on schedule and within budget. And as a matter of fact, we're kind of ahead of schedule, aren't we?
Yes, we are. We are a little bit ahead of schedule right now. I always, you know, I don't want to jinx it. So, you know, we want to under promise and over deliver. So we're on schedule, but really we are a little bit ahead of schedule. So I'm touching wood here, you know, just to make sure that we remain that way. So yeah, we're as you can see in the sprint 1 status, a lot was done. And in fact, a lot was completed even prior to the first sprint. I had to make the font smaller so that it could fit in, all the done items could fit inside the table there, as I was trying to get it to fit the slides. So I apologize for the small size on your screen.
I just tried to blow it up and it still wouldn't blow up, and I'm straining my eyes to read.
Yeah, no.
So yeah, we've got 2 items, right, that are in review, and since you wrote this, that might have changed. I really don't know, but feature the WASM upgrade, and constrained pool to ensure Lunk can never have more than 2 trillion supply. You want to speak on those 2 things?
Sure. So just in regards to the items that are in progress, what we've done is, you know, we have sometimes what'll happen is, so basically, I'll just back up a bit. When we start the sprint, we try to aggressively put as much stuff, you know, in there that is going to fill everybody's calendars all the way until the end of the sprint. And inevitably, sometimes you will end up with several items that, you know, are 80% done. One will be 95% done. One will be like 98% done. And then you roll some of those into the next week. In our case, we've only rolled a few over into the next sprint. But that's something that's very, it's 100% customary, and it happens on everything that I work on. So
If I can add something here, I'd
Yeah.
like to just point out real quick that the 2 items remaining in review, the constraint pool thing, is some code that I actually wrote back in the summer when I did my first PR to Terra Money, which just constrains the swap system so we can actually enable it again without, you know, doing the infinite minting thing. And it's actually an out of scope item, meaning that I ran out of in scope approved work in the sprint, so I decided to do something else. And the WASM upgrade was always going to take a long time because it's not really scheduled for until the 204 release. So a good way to keep track of whether or not we complete the in-scope sprint, or the work that's been selected into the sprint, is try to look at the labels and the milestones and see, okay, this is an out-of-scope label. That's an indication that the team took in more work. This is a milestone that is scheduled to be delivered, you know, at the end of Q1. That means that they just started working on stuff that they know is going to take some time to chug through. And then that provides an explanation sometimes for the state of these things, because it is very customary to roll over work. You can also notice that we abandoned a work item around the Beg 32 stuff also, and so on. If you look at the project sprint board, and that is also just because we make an assessment and then we decide that this has been fixed in another way.
All right, cool. You had made a comment during our last meeting, Tobias. You said something to the effect of, you know, you're so far ahead, maybe 2/3 of the workload had pretty much already been done, and we're only a third of the way through the quarter. So when it comes to this, these extra things that you're including in, how do you determine what else to start working on? I mean, is that going to be something that maybe some things will be put up for the community to say, all right, well, we finished all this, so would you like us to work on A, B, or C? How's that going to work?
In general, we have 2 types of work items when we produce software. We have what we call business PPIs, which are the features that the community needs. And then we have technical PPIs that revolves around stuff that the team needs to sustain their development process. So in general, when we run out of stuff to do within a sprint, we typically prioritize our technical backlog, because that's a lot of housekeeping. We prioritize non-state breaking changes that we can cherry pick for future releases, so we can get ahead of the curve and have things on the shelf in case the community needs it. And then if we, you know, get to a certain point where we can see, okay, I mean, looking at, for instance, the milestones on our classic repository, you can see that, you know, we're roughly 2/3 through the workload we initially defined. So when we get to the end of that, we then assess, you know, how much time is left in the quarter. And then we try to identify certain deliverables that we feel we can deliver within the quarter, because there's this uncertainty of whether or not, you know, we get refunded. So it often doesn't make sense to commit to things that will span across multiple funding rounds, because then you might end up only getting half done and not getting funding. And then it's basically just a waste of money, right?
Right, I got you. I'm looking at the chat, and you know what? As anticipated, and as what is usual, there could be an agitator or two. I just want to speak, you know, real quick to you guys. Listen, all perspectives are welcome, right? If you don't agree with what the task force is doing, or you have even personal feelings about individuals or whatever, those perspectives are welcome, but you can get them across in an adult manner. Give your opinions, because when you come like a bonehead with them, you're just going to get timed out, and then nobody really gets to see what the point is that you're trying to make anyway. So just, maybe find a softer way to get your point across, and we can actually get some of these questions in. JB says, guys, can you do the work he does? No, you can't. Also, this is just a discussion, so the man has a right to his point of view, whether you agree or disagree. Yeah, and that's pretty much what I was just saying. You can agree or disagree what's going on, but just, just do it like an adult, I'm just scrolling through to see if I can find any other questions real quick before we move on. Most definitely, JB, I know your intentions. Okay, Faluna says hi. All right. All right. So did anybody else have anything they wanted to add to what Zaradar was saying? If not, I'm going to just scroll down here a little bit.
Yeah,
Okay.
the only thing that I would add is that we still the release dates will still have to be looked at, and you still need to have enough gap between release dates. We still need to just double check all of our dependencies before we launch and stuff like that. So there's still there's plenty to be done, and with software development, you don't know what you don't know until you uncover it too. So there always is a possibility of more items in the backlog and stuff like that. But yeah, we're progressing well on our schedule, and I think that attests to the team doing a good job in terms of the velocity of how fast these guys are able to work well together and get stuff completed. It's a lot of fun to be a part of and to watch, and I'm really enjoying it quite a bit, to tell you the truth. I look forward to every morning meeting that we have, with my cup of coffee, and bright and early at 7 a.m. we go over what everybody's going to work on for the day, and it's been a lot of fun so far.
Yeah, well, it's good to see a group of people who really by themselves are kind of all alphas, but it's good to see people can come together and achieve a goal. And even if you have disagreements, you can handle those disagreements, in a professional way, and come to a consensus and move on. It's something that I have to do daily in my line of work, and I appreciate it when I see it happening in other places, and that definitely is what we see happening here. So I congratulate you guys for that. All right. So the L1 Sprint project board can be viewed in real time on GitHub. We talked about that. You can see everything happening on GitHub as it's happening. There's even sections for you to comment or ask questions on things. It's really cool. The Q1 budget forecast and actuals. There have been no changes to the budget forecast spent at this time. But we did have some conversations about this, and about taking the LUNC and converting it and getting ready to make a payment at the end of the month. And I would imagine, LBA, you're the one to maybe speak on this too right now.
Yeah, so this is actually, I provided an update last night. This was completed yesterday. So Ed was able to do that conversion. The 141K plus a little bit of fees was moved into the TGF Kraken account. And then basically what the surplus that's there will remain in the multi-sig. So I think it was around 108 million lunk will remain in the multi-sig. Only 800 million lunk was needed instead of 908, because the price of lunk went up, and it remained in the multi-sig wallet for the balance of the month. It's fortunate that that's a good problem to have, as opposed to the inverse, right? Because it could have gone completely the other direction, while it took a little bit of time for for those accounts to get set up and to be prepared to transfer it over, the market conditions could have gone the other way. So this is a good problem to have. And basically, what's going to happen is that 24,000 of surplus is going to sit in the multi-sig account and will either be rolled into Q2, or if the L1 task force didn't receive another mandate, and get funded for Q2, it would simply get sent back to the community pool. So I think that's a great process to have. Now, moving forward, if we do get funding for Q2, the day that the proposal passes and the day that the funds would appear in the multi-sig wallet, immediately they would get converted to US to out of LUNC and into a stable coin. And the reason for that is we don't want to we don't want market conditions to impact us, right, negatively. So it's the safest thing with the least amount of risk. So that's what will happen moving forward. But I think this is a good win-win as a solution for everybody involved, and we can talk to the community at the end of Q1 and see what what the desire is. And if we're going to go for Q2, then we just that 24K would be part of that proposal.
Yeah, ending up with more than what you started off with is absolutely a good problem to have. And I just want to so there's clarity for the community and everyone listening. So the surplus dollar amount of Luna Classic was 24.6K, and that's because the value of LUNC has gone up since the proposal, right? So it will remain in the multi-sig wallet until the end of Q1, at which time the L1 task force will consult with the community and create a new funding proposal for Q2, where the 24.6 surplus would be rolled into the second quarter if the L1 task force has provided a Q2 mandate, or would be returned to the community pool. So if we get to so we're going to get to the end of Q1 and we have some extra funds at that point sitting in the multi-sig wallet, and a budget is proposed for Q2 that goes up for governance vote, and subtract the 24.6 or whatever it is at that point from that budget, it would just roll forward. That's what you're proposing, yeah?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. What out of curiosity, what would have happened? Like, what had you guys thought about it? What would be the procedure? Let's say, you get to I don't know, next month or whatever, all of a sudden, and God forbid, but all of a sudden things take a dive and you end up with less money than you started off with. What happens?
We can't pay our salaries, which means people inherently just stop working. It's quite simple, really. I mean, there's no contracts, there's no nothing. And this is why it's so important that we exchange this money into dollars as soon as we get it. And I mean, Stephen and I have sort of been pushing a lot for that, and that has been trying to make it happen. But there's unfortunately it takes some time to register new accounts and so on and so forth. So in a way, you could say we were lucky, right? Because you can't build a business on a long treasury as long as the market is volatile. And I think this again proves why a concept like the partition pools are so important if we want other businesses to use our chain and our M1 money supply to create their own M2 whatever metaverse coins on top of that. So I think that's it's inherent nature of volatility, and why companies also have to diversify, right? I mean, companies, they have fiat, and they have stocks, and they have art, and they have whatever as a way to spread out their value, because they know they can get hit in a bad way if they're hedged too much in a single category.
Yeah. LBA and I had a conversation about this surplus, and I was questioning, what is the point of keeping it in a multi-sig wallet? Well, you know, if there's a surplus, why wouldn't that be just returned to the community pool? But honestly, what I really wasn't looking ahead to, and I kind of just asked the question now is, well, what if there's a dip, right? And all of a sudden you have less than what so it's a lot easier to have this surplus sitting in the multi-sig wallet than it is to return it. And then all of a sudden there's a dip. And what you just said is, if you can't pay yourself, work stops. It's a lot easier to have it on surplus to work with than it is to say, all right, now we have to go and propose that we get that money back out of the community pool so that we can continue work, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think I said it to Steve in this way, you know, the community doesn't get to swing trade our funding, because the fact of the matter is that we were lucky. If we had been unlucky and the price had crashed another 90%, let's just say that to do an imaginary scenario, would people be willing to fork over another 10 billion long to be able to fund us? I'm not so sure. So I think people have to keep that in mind when they make their assessments, that these markets can go both ways, and it's a really bad idea to try to create a budget reality around one that is, you know, measured in the value of long.
Yeah. All right. So I've got a couple questions here from the chat. Mudman says, hi, Trev. Hi, Z. Hi, team. I have a question regarding the 2 trillion constrained lunk pool. How does it differ or relate to the 10 billion hard cap or lunk that was proposed earlier? Thank you.
It's just a convenience thing. A lot of the existing unit tests in the code were wired to set up tests that have pre-filled pools that would simply just break if I put the logic to 10 billion. So when I made the code, I simply just put the lowest possible number that I could without breaking a lot of the unit tests, because that would make me have to do other work. And by and large, you know, setting a number of, you know, anywhere above 2 trillion is kind of pointless anyways right now, because it's probably going to take a while before we get there. And when we get there, we can always adjust the number higher when we have time to fix the unit tests that break when we set a lower number. So in general, this was just a convenience thing, so I could do it while remaining productive and not having to sidetrack onto fixing other code.
Okay. And the next question was, I don't know if it's a question or a statement really, but wasn't it said this first round was on discount? It absolutely was said that. And one should expect to pay double for the next round. And there's a question mark after that. So I guess that's his question. For Q2, are we looking at doubling the budget? Has it even been looked at yet?
Well, I mean, right now, we don't even know if we have a budget for Q2, but to just answer the question, we're all working at a discounted rate with the current budget. I think it's fair to assess that if we can deliver the things that we committed to in a professional manner, then it's only fair that we get paid, you know, fair value.
All right. All right. So back over here, this says all payments to the L1 task force team will take place at the end of the month and will be sent via USDC, which we pretty much covered. And again, you can go to this article yourself and you can look at all the graphs and read through everything. It's not very long. It is very concise. And if unless anybody has anything to add about this here, I wanted to actually move on to LBA's subsequent article. I'll take that as a no.
let me jump in about
Sure.
Q2, because I do believe that, you know, Q1 we had a specific idea of what needed to be done, and it was very L1, like, you know, Cosmos SDK Tendermint related. In Q2, I think there's going to be a little bit more emphasis on the compatibility of the L2 layer, right? Because we're thinking about like COS and WASM upgrades and the effects on the smart contracts. And so I do think in that regard, we will need to bring in someone who's more of like an L1, L2 integration expert. And I have a few people that I've been in talks with that may be interested in joining. So I think just in general, like there may be some need for additional expertise.
Okay. Am I muted or unmuted? No, I'm not. All right, I'm not muted. All right, thank you for that, Ed. JB, I'm not ignoring you. I do. JB is very obsessed in the chat with this idea of a Senate, which we haven't even discussed today, and I don't know if we'll get to. If we do, I will certainly go to your questions on that. I just don't want to kind of get derailed on the path that we're on. Millennial Market, thanks for being here. He says, I thought the markets only went up. Yeah, don't we all wish? And Richie's Plain Talk, thank you very much. My friend is always here, and he is a mod, and he just sent forth a $100 super chat. I run out of ways to say thank you to this guy. He's just unbelievable. He's got a question. Or a comment rather. Got here late, heard some white noise about if we are to work with Luna 2, they don't want us burning. And is there any truth to that? Anybody want to speak on that? Anything about that?
I don't really see
don't
how
cor-
that's any of their business, to be honest. I mean, what we burn on our network, I guess, is up to our governance layer.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Hopefully-
I think we're also working on this IBC tax exemption thing. Your Frag is working on that. So from the perspective of V2, I don't even see how they would be affected by our burn tax, to be honest.
Yeah. So I hope that answers your question, Richie. And again, thank you very much for that. You're a very, very generous person, and I can't really show my appreciation for you enough. Andrea Granovic seems to have a bit of a problem. This says developers deserve to be paid, but maybe stop trying to squeeze every last cent from the community and work to pump your own bags.
It's fairly simple. Let me answer that.
Why
I
is
get
why is
5
he
job
only
offers a week, so let's not even start this discussion. I think it's pointless. You can't compare what you make with what people like I make. It's not a fair world. I didn't create it. It just is that way. And we all have to work from a perspective of optimizing our value. So if you want to attract talent to build your investment, then you have to pay them. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. It's true. Yeah, I really don't have anything to add to that. That's exactly right. All right. So I wanted to go real quick to the COS and WASM article. And this was put out, I believe, on the same day, right? And it's a 1-minute read. It's very, very short, and it just speaks to this is the COS and WASM versions 0.16.6 to version 1.1.1 impact assessment. And it says a key component of the Luna Classic v2.0.4 upgrade scheduled to take place prior to the end of Q1 of 23 is the COS and WASM upgrade to version 1.1.1. Upgrading the COS and WASM to the most current version will cause issues with existing smart contracts and will require that they be updated prior to the upgrade. LBA, are there instructions for people to do whatever they need to do? Is it, if people have questions, can they just come to you on that, or how is that going to work?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that there's a decision that needs to be finalized and 100% confirmed. And then the team, Frag, Tobias, Ed, Superman, Jacob, they will all, and Vin, they will all provide documentation and work with the existing smart contract holders so that that information is made available. One of the key things that we want to do is start this conversation sooner rather than later, so that people know themselves that they're going to ultimately, I mean, it's a best practice to future-proof your applications anyways. So we want to upgrade and get to version 1.1.1. So this is something we reached out. We wanted to know how many smart contracts are out there, how people feel about some different choices and things like that. So it's just to get the conversation started and get some analysis done. And then the next step is really, once we make a final decision, we're going to have to provide those instructions out to folks on how they can update their smart contracts. Trevor, are you saying something, or are you muted, or?
No, I think he's muted.
Oh.
I was just wondering what
Oops.
happened to the sound.
Yeah, I'm talking away to myself, apparently. Yeah, I was sorry about that, and thanks for pointing it out. No, I was looking at the chart, and I'm saying that there's 4 different scenarios. And down bottom, it does say the recommendation is to proceed with scenario 4 in order to provide the most effective upgrade path. And then next to it, decision, proceed with scenario 4 is in red with a question mark. So are we decided, not decided?
Greg, do you want to take this one? Because I feel like I've been answering a lot of the questions.
Yeah, so I think so there are multiple scenarios that we have, and I think scenario 4 is the most effective one, which so we have the option to either nuke all the existing contracts that are on the chain, and just make a flat. But I think I kind of feel that that's not right for existing contract holders, and so there's. I'm currently, I don't know whether we should put that up as a proposal or not, or whether we should just decide it for us. I think the question mark probably just means that we put up a proposal for this, so that the community gets to decide this.
So if I can add in something here, please.
Yeah, you can.
I think it's important for people to keep in mind that the reason why Frag and our team has mapped out all of these scenarios is because we might not get to decide as a community. There might be a world where only one scenario ends up being viable. And then we're obviously going to work from the approach of trying to implement the most desirable scenario. And this is also why we call, for instance, scenario number 2, the nuclear option. And scenario number 1 should probably be called mass extinction, because that is the consequence of not upgrading at the end of the day.
Yeah, scenario 1's not even really an option. It's like I don't think anybody would look at that option and do it. It's just do nothing and let the chain remain as is. I mean, that's not something, you don't have any compatibility with the parity sort of state that we've talked about wanting to have with version 2. So really the other 3 are different scenarios, and right now, like Tobias said, scenario 4 is the best choice, and that Frag said that's the best scenario. it has to still be tested and confirmed that it's going to work exactly the way we'd like. If for some reason it doesn't work and we can't do that scenario, then we're faced with a whole other situation, right? So that's a good point. And that's why this type of analysis work is important, because it shows it first of all, it helps us think through the different options and gives us, assists with like which way is the best way to try to proceed. And then it also shows that, we've done our due diligence that way. And if we can't proceed with one, then what's remaining? What other choices do we have? I think at the end of the day, though, you have to upgrade the chain, right? So it's just going to be what's the best path we can take to do so.
Yeah, but just so we have these scenarios, and we can do our due diligence on the different scenarios. But in the end, the community would have to decide.
Exactly.
Yeah, so the question mark really means the community gets to decide which of these scenarios they want.
Exactly. And that will get updated once the community decides, how they would proceed.
All right.
I mean, I think we'll put it out as a governance vote recommending the way for to proceed, but they get to choose yes or no, right? So it'll be interesting
Yes,
to see.
Yeah, I think I also think the scenario 4 should be voted, should get to a vote. So
yeah,
so they can vote yes or no, and if they vote no, yeah, I don't know.
Ed, I think you need to host a governance proposal writing weekend at your house. We'll all come over and set our laptops around the.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to hand off governance to all of you guys.
I could just envision us sitting around your kitchen table, all of us with laptops, spending a weekend just hammering out all these different proposals.
Well, you guys really know how to party, huh?
I'm sure Ed's family would love that, right?
Oh, my goodness. Strath, I got a question that I want to ask from the community here, but Strath, do you have a feeling or anything to add on this these different scenarios here?
Yeah, from my point of view, they are totally correct. Scenario 4 is the most preferred one from the view of the contract owners, I guess, because when the chain gets updated, the contracts need to be updated anyway, and so it would only be the choice between keeping your data and having to redeploy anything and replay all the states in it. So if possible, I think for contract owners, scenario 4 would still be some work, of course, because upgrading of the code is needed, but it would be the least work from the discussed scenario 4 or scenario 2 decisions.
All right. So, I mean, if everybody on the task force is kind of in agreement, right? And if there are no major arguments to this on Agora or anything else, everybody is kind of leaning towards scenario 4. Is it wasting time maybe to go through the whole governance thing, or is it, it just should happen that way because it just should go to the community and that's that?
Well, it has to happen that way because that's the way the protocol stipulates that changes can be incurred in the network.
Well, I think it was Frag. Just maybe I misheard him, but he was like, "Oh, should we send this for governance or shouldn't we?" So that's why I'm
No, I
asking.
think he was saying it would be up to
Yes.
the community to decide,
Yes.
but it has to go for governance for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So I misunderstood. All right.
I think just to follow up on that for a second, I think that's one of the things that often bogs us down and is time consuming, right? It's not that we want to have to go through governance, but governance is an important process in order to keep the network code honest and, you know, in accordance with the entire network's wishes. Otherwise, we could just alter the network in any way we see fit, and that would eventually just centralize the system in a different way.
Right, gotcha. All right, so Matt's Market is in the chat. And Matt, I see the question that you asked, and I'm going to ask it, but you actually just missed the answer to that question. We were just talking about that just before you popped in with that question. So he says, what do you guys plan to do with the extra funding, roughly 15K more than y'all requested, that is sitting in the wallet from the L1TF community spend prop? Does anybody just want to recap that real quick?
Sure, I can recap that. So it's in the status update that I'd put out, and I tweeted about it as well, just on Twitter last night. Basically, the funds have been transferred over from the multisig to the USD in the TGF Kraken account. So the 141K that was budgeted for Q1 has been moved out. That left, because Lunk appreciated, that left 108 million Lunk that did not need to be moved. So that's going to remain in the multisig wallet until the end of Q1, and at which time it will be assessed whether or not to, you know, if the task force gets approved for Q2, then that funding will just roll into Q2, and the task force would not need to ask for, you know, it would reduce the amount that's needed to be asked for a spend ask. And then if the task force does not get approved, that those funds will be returned to the community wallet at that time.
Yep, and there's a Medium article about it, and I'll try to link all this stuff in the description for people who want to find it a little easier. All right, Richie's Plain Talk says, not all developers are alike, and we got the best. Let's pay them what they are worth. You want them to make you rich and don't want to pay them. All right. Faluna, if some people want paying more than we can afford to pay, would we be able to advertise for devs elsewhere to work on the team? I mean, I don't really.
Most definitely. I mean,
know,
if you can find a cheaper dev that can do the same thing that I do, by all means, hire him. I would be the first from an investor perspective to encourage that. But again, people like me don't get 5 job offers a week because the world is full of people like me. So I don't know what to say other than let's find these guys and hire them.
yeah, right. Let the L1 team choose the best viable option. This is from Mudman. The one is not time or resource intensive. The governance process and headless debates might just delay the process and dev work. Well, like we said, though, it has to go up for governance, but there will be a recommendation. So hopefully things just kind of go smoothly. Ed, it's kind of the last thing that I wanted to cover, and then we can take questions from the chat or anything else that you guys want to talk about. But right before we got on here, I saw that you sent out a tweet about something else that you put up here for governance, and now I'm trying to find it. What was the title? What was the title on it?
Hit refresh. I think you probably, this might be old list. There it is. Reimbursement.
Guys, I have to go. Sorry. I have a real life thing. A friend of mine has birthday today. So
thank you much. Thank you much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Bye.
We'll talk to you soon. All right. I hadn't even had the chance to read this because I just saw the tweet about it again right before we were getting in here and I was getting set up. Do you want to tell us briefly what this is about?
Sure. Yeah. This is not really related to the L1 task force stuff.
Right.
This is back in September when we first introduced the 1.2% burn tax. We tested everything on, and it worked on testnet, but for one reason or another on mainnet, the actual fees were just a slight bit higher than on testnet. And so what happened was the gas adjustments were right on the border. Some transactions went through, some failed. And at that time, Strath and myself were looking through the chain to see which transactions failed and how much and who was involved with these failed transactions. And really it was it was a confusing time. This was, again, back in September, and things were not well established back then. And so what we ended up doing was, and I think it was really Strath, myself, and Alex. We sort of had this idea that it would be a good gesture to reimburse the people who got who were trying to make transfers during that time, and their tax and their gas fees were taken and burned or put to the community pool for the gas fees, but their transactions didn't go through, right? So they'd have to continue to repeat the transactions. And it was almost a random process, which ones went through and which ones didn't. So yeah, I mean, a lot of this work was done by Strath in terms of the chain analysis of getting which wallets lost which fees. And then there's a few wallets with a large amount of failed transactions. And I picked out the first 9 here that had over 5 million LUNC, that we know some of them are central exchanges. We don't know some of the other ones, but yeah, so for those ones, I think you can't just send a central exchange wallet funds and expect it to go where it should go. And so I think for those ones, I think the best process there is to manually reach out to these exchanges and talk to them and see how we can reimburse them. For the other ones, it does look like for the most part they're user wallets, and so there's a script that I linked to here where it automatically just goes through the list and then does the send transactions to reimburse them for the fees they lost. So this is like work that was we should have done a while ago when the fees were lost, but obviously everyone's extremely busy, and I had a free moment this afternoon, so I knocked it out.
Okay. All right. Well, this will be an interesting one to follow. It is up now in Agora, in governance and proposals. It's called Reimbursement of Lost Fees between September 21st and 28th. Go and read it. I always recommend everybody reads through all of the comments afterwards as well, because you can read through this thing, and then as you read through the comments, you get some different perspectives, things you maybe hadn't thought of. And you listen to the arguments for and against, and it really helps you to kind of hone in on understanding what you're reading. So, all right, I didn't mean to take us off track. There is a question, and it may be the last question, I don't know, from the chat. It says, how often is the L1 team /ed in communication with Binance? Daily, weekly, less?
So I mean, I'm in a Telegram group with Binance, and I have a private chat with them too. It depends on if there's something to talk about. So there was early in January, I was on a video chat with Binance every day, every night, like at 11 p.m. my time. I would jump on and we would have lots to talk about. These days, I talk to them maybe once a week, just sort of status updates. They are interested in what's going on over here. I mean, there is a particular person that's handling Luna and Luna Classic. So they want to know if, what proposals are coming out, what governance is passing. Obviously, if there's something, chain related, they need to update their their full nodes and their machines on their side. So they need to know that stuff too. And so yeah, I mean, they're interested. There's a person who's very well informed as to what's going on over here. And yeah, I like to keep them up to date.
Okay. All right, Volkov, I hope that answers your question. There's one more subject that I want to touch on really, really briefly. But before I do that, Frag, is there anything specific that you were hoping we talked about today, or anything you want to bring up before we begin to wrap this up?
No, thanks. From my side, everything's good. Yeah, it's pretty late here over in Germany, so I'm kind of tired now. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I got you. All right. So we're moving toward the end. And it's the same thing for Strath. He's way ahead of us, and it's pretty late where he is. Strath, was there anything you wanted to touch on before I just asked this last question?
Not what I can specifically think of. So Greg and I both are in Germany, so we have the same time zone here.
Right.
But no, I think if there's no questions from the chat or something, I personally have nothing to really talk about currently.
All right. All right. So I have one quick thing, and hopefully we can just handle this as concisely and quickly as we can. And the question pretty much is going to be directed toward LBA. Where are we on filling the void in the oversight committee? Have you been getting a lot of people, reaching out to you, or where are we in that process?
Yeah, so I posted the timeline. Basically, I wanted to follow a similar timeline that we had to Agora, just in the sense that 7 days would be kind of, we'd give it around a week's time. So that'll be ending at the end of this upcoming week. And then we will have a good, we'll have the people that wanted to, participate or that wanted to be part of it. And then we'll put up a vote using a site where we can try to ensure that the vote is that people aren't able to manipulate it as best as we can. And yeah, we'll let the community decide who will fill that role. And the community sort of voted in Strathcole and yourself, DJ Trev, via the proposal that had passed, that passed governance. So this is just another way to sort of continue that process where it's the community gets to choose, and then we go from there. Now, one thing I would say is that there's certain, if somebody's conducted fraud or something like that, or been involved in rug pulls and things, we won't be letting them participate in that vote, just as a FYI.
Yep. Gotcha. All right. Can you give me any feeling of how many people have actually reached out to you at this point?
Yeah, about 5 altogether.
5? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, it's a good number so far. I'd expect, maybe a couple more will jump in. So
yeah. Okay. All righty. That's it for me. There doesn't seem to be any other questions in the chat. So I want to thank everybody who came and took part in the roundtable today. Strathcole, Frag, Ed, Lunkburn Army, and Zaradar. I appreciate it, and I'm sure that the community appreciates it as well. Everyone in the chat, thanks for being here. Thanks for your questions. My mods, thank you very much. Thank you for the super chats, and we are going to wrap it up and leave it at that. We'll see all you guys later. Have a good one.
okay, take care.
Yes, good night.
Thank you. Good night.
See you.